you don't have to do that to be a manager, to be a leader. You have to empathize with people and, enjoy going deep in conversations with individuals and finding out what makes them tick and so on. Um, but the things that get posted on LinkedIn are not necessarily the things that make you a great leader.
So my question to you in this case is, when you have to start a team from scratch, that most of the time it's not the most common thing. Most of the time you already have a team and you have to make it work and adapt and change or whatever. But as a CTO, engineering manager, dev manager, or whatever, it's like, how do you usually think the structure of a team, and then how do you go down into each specific role? Or do you have any kind of thoughts about that and how to do it?
I mean, your mileage may vary. So I will say the team that I most recently built, which was a ground up build, we started with, four people staring at each other in a Zoom room saying, "Hey, we have the money from founders. Now what do we do?" That's very much from the beginning. Honestly, you start with who you can find, right? And you're looking for the most capable people you can find right now that kind of roughly meet the skill set, and then you build around it. So, if you start, at least I found, if you're starting from scratch, find people that have good skills, that have the desire to use those skills, and have the potential to grow into something beyond those skills now. And honestly, whoever you can get first, get, and then build around them. Um, my last gig, I had it really was an engineering manager, but was willing to do engineering, like the individual contributor, engineering for a little bit. Was someone who I knew to be strong, had the desire to do the job, and I knew from experience working with them before had unlimited potential on the upside. So that was our first hire, right? And then from there, you start to look at the skill set that they have, and you start to look for complements. So this individual was great in DevOps and infrastructure and backend engineering, was not great at front end. So lo and behold, my next hire was someone who was great at front end, and you kind of keep going from there. I think again, when you're starting from scratch, um, it's not usual that you have the luxury of bringing everybody on at the same time. So you have to start somewhere with the skills that you can and complement it as you go.
How do you manage bringing someone who like that you can bring on board and bringing the right person? Because that's something that we have came across quite a lot with startups. It's like, no, it's a very small team. We need to bring the right person. And sometimes they take too long. And they end not hiring or hiring someone 3 months later or 6 months later, and spending a lot of time meeting someone that will check all the boxes, will tick all the boxes. How do you go through that decision process of, it has to be the right person, but also it has to be someone that I can bring on board at the end of the day?
Yeah. Again, startups focus on generalists first. So the more specific you are in your ask and need, the harder it's going to be to find that person and the easier to disqualify them. So, you can kind of roughly focus on back end or front end or DevOps or, the rough skill set that you need. But if you dig in, further to uber specifics around, the types of experience they've had, or the types of technologies that they use to a deep degree, uh, that kind of paralysis can prevent you from making that hire and bringing them on and getting somebody useful now. That sort of specialization comes in later, right? So once you have a team that's, I don't know, 12, 15 people large, you can start to specialize a little more and be a little more choosy is not quite the right word, but be more specific in the skills that you're asking for. And at that stage, you usually have a little time to find them. But I guess I would argue that if you really are a startup, you really are starting from scratch, and you're finding yourself spending 3 to 6 months, choosing a person to join your team, um, did you really need that role in the first place? Right?
That's very interesting. That's very interesting because, and I think that here is you need to understand what are your priorities and have a clear understanding of what you need and what do you need to do. Because again, if you need to bring someone on board because something needs to be done, spending 3 months to hire someone, then you can ask yourself, do you really need that person? Uh, or someone else. Maybe you need someone, but maybe it's not necessarily that person. So
There are disqualifiers certainly at the early stages. I mean, do they mesh with the team that you've got? Are they, to your point or earlier, are they capable to do the job? Or do they have the desire to do the job? Do they have potential? I mean, those things are prerequisites. Have they used Terraform in a multinational large company setting, for at least 5 years? Those are, if you need that specific a skill set that early on, you're doing something very specific, and it might take you a long time to find that. But I'd be surprised if you couldn't get by with someone who could learn that quickly, or has demonstrated that they know it and are interested in using it and furthering it.
how do you, or in your experience, how you have deal with bringing people on board? That it's the people that you can bring on board because of the resources you have, because of whatever the situation, and help them be successful in that job.
Mhm.
Help them be successful in that role, knowing that they might be journalistic and they might not know a few things that you guys are doing, that they need to learn them, but still they don't know them. How do you prepare them for success on that role?
Yeah, I mean, some skill overlap is helpful. So it's rare that you hire someone that knows some set of languages, and then you ask them to go do something, I don't know, off the main perhaps. But in terms of just ramping people up and getting them up to speed on what you're working on, um, have a plan. So I guess I do try to be upfront with people coming in, especially if it's a startup situation, new team where everything is somewhat in flux. We're not going to have the best onboarding documentation available. The system is evolving, the code is evolving, everything is evolving. So even if I have something to point you to look at, it may not be correct, or you may need to update it. So setting those expectations up front, I think, is important, because if someone comes in with the expectation that they're going to be kind of led through a very specific training cycle, that's the wrong expectation to set. And you need to make sure you've got people that can sort of thrive in that environment. That said, once they show up and you have the plan for roughly how to expose them to different areas that you need to work with them on, it's just setting, shorter term goals. So, did you meet with everyone, you were supposed to this week? So have you met with somebody from customer service, or have you met with the marketing team, or have you met with, somebody else, maybe not core to your everyday, but making sure those meetings happen on a regular basis, making sure you're committing code, preferably day one if you can, and then checking in with those sorts of things over time. Plan helps, your goals help. Um, Beyond that, I would be totally lying if I said I had a perfect training plan for every person.
I was gonna ask you that, not a perfect training plan, but do you have a specific approach to onboard new people that you say it's like, okay, these are the few things that I know that need to happen, and then I implement those on the go, or you don't necessarily have something that you kind of follow in order to onboard someone?
Yeah, again, it depends on the role too. So a developer, common kinds of things are be able to commit day one, be able to contribute to smaller bug fixes within the first week to 2 weeks, be able to contribute to bigger features, within the first month. And then, ideally, if they're more senior, be able to plan features and start to, lead those types of projects within the first three. And those are kind of rough timelines and guidelines to set. Um, Obviously, that changes role to role, but those are, the rough goals that you're trying to hit, or at least that I try to hit. In terms of specifics around, do you know the specific formulation of, um, get flow that we use or feature flagging that we use? I mean, all of those things I think sort of come with time. Um, but, uh, but yeah, I mean, it's again, the goal is the important thing. It's shipping code in that case is the important thing, and orienting those goals around those shipping points is important.
Do you have a North Star that you follow when you like you realize that you need someone for the team? Like what's your approach to, okay, we are a team of, I don't know, 4. We need to do new stuff or maintain new stuff or whatever. Like there's something that needs to be done. Do you have a specific process to decide what role is the one you need? And what are going to be the skill sets and capabilities of the person to bring on board?
Yeah, I wish I had a really awesome answer to that. The honest answer is no. I mean, it's sort of observing what you see on the team, and especially if it's small, right? You're constrained by the type of work that you've got coming in, the alignment of current skills that you have to that work, and the availability in the market of the skills that you don't have, right? So, look, if you're doing a lot of front end work and you only have one person, two people would be nice, just from a bus factor scenario, right? So as soon as you can get to having some redundancy in terms of the skill set that you've got, I think that's a great first step. The rest is sort of situational. So, you have to choose early on, do you want to invest in something like DevOps, or do you want to use more, not necessarily platform as a service, but maybe platform as a service oriented technologies so that you can delay those hires, and maybe you spend a little more on the infrastructure in that case, but you're not hiring somebody up front. Those are all, I think, sort of personal decisions that the individual teams make, right? Do they skew more toward do-it-yourself open source infrastructure? Do they skew more toward shipping code? I personally would, at that stage, skew more toward shipping code. But you can kind of make trade-offs in terms of resources and the types of technologies you use to delay or defer making some specific skill decisions. I'm not entirely sure that answers your question, but
Definitely yes, and you definitely again, you might not be saying that you don't have a specific plan or answer to that, but in reality you do have. First, you decide if you want to bring someone on board, or you do it with a platform. Then you do a whole process of identifying what's going on and so on. Some people might not be aware of what other options are there, and they just think of the first option, that it's bring someone on board to the team. So definitely not, you don't only answer the question, but I think you gave valuable information for people that might be new in this kind of roles, because that's kind of the idea of this new channel. It's being able to bring value to people that are starting to be, instead of individual contributors, to bring teams together to start bringing value as a team and not just individually. So definitely it's very helpful. How do you manage to give opportunities to the team members you already have in the team, with the options you have? Like most people want to grow in some way or another. How do you manage, or how do you do this of being able to give opportunities to different team members, depending on their skills, capabilities, and interests, of course? But how do you go with that?
the skills, capabilities, and interests are key there, right? Because it's not just giving opportunities; it's giving opportunities that they want. Um, and everybody is a little bit different. I've had engineers that really enjoy solving production issues and solving the mysteries. I personally enjoy some of that work, but um, the types of things that you put in front of those people differ from the types of work that you might find to put in front of someone who really enjoys building a new feature or really enjoys crafting a beautiful user interface or really enjoys just doing maintenance works and doing lots of tasks. Like some people really enjoy the idea of coming in the morning and ticking off the task list of 10 things that day that they did to make things better. So really kind of working with the people that you've got to understand what drives them, what kinds of things they would be interested in. And then, trying to look forward in the roadmap, trying to look forward, on the feature side, on the tech side, and find things that might match those interests. Um, there's always a new technology to play with. There's always something new that would be, interesting to integrate within the current environment that you've got that could be impactful. So, there's certainly POCs that you can do and assign to people that if you give them a few hours in a week to take a look at, they can present back to the team. They get some validation that, they're doing something that's one, interesting and new. Two, that, it may be impactful to what it is that you're doing as a startup. So it's not, it's got to be related to what you're doing. And three, gives them an opportunity to sort of interact with the team and present it back and show some work. I think those three things are kind of key when you do that. But yeah, the fundamental is just knowing you have to be in a position to know what's coming up, to know enough about both the technology and the domain that you're working in to know what might be interesting to look through, and then know who to assign that stuff to.
Mike, one last question. I think you have gave us a lot of very good information. I think again, even though you said that you don't have a perfect plan for everything, you have a very good understanding of what are the things that you need to take care of, and then on each situation with each team, company, individual, you do it ad hoc, but you definitely have the North Stars in order to do each specific thing. So I have asked a few questions. Again, this channel is we want to talk to people that are getting into these new jobs of leading teams. What would be your advice for someone that is going from architect or senior developer or principal developer engineer that will jump onto a formal leadership role, even though if it's a team of 4 or 5 or whatever? What would be your advice if you would be mentoring someone?
I guess two things there. They're not unique. Once you get into management leadership, it's less about what you're producing yourself and more about what your team is producing. So you have to be willing to really understand who's on the team, empathize with who's on the team, and get the best work out of them that you can. And it's less about whether you can code the most crazy thing or most difficult thing. It's about optimizing for the group, not necessarily the individual. I think the other thing I would say is the thing that you're strongest at is usually the thing that falls down the fastest. So if you're
How?
if you're the architect, then at least I found just personally I've always thought of myself as an architect prior to getting into more leadership roles. And I always said, I can make those decisions. I can do that technology when I have time. And but right now I'm going to focus on hiring or on you know revamping process or whatever the other thing might be, right? And the thing that you're most comfortable with is often the thing that gets put on the back burner and you're reticent to hire for because you know how to do that. So, I guess I would almost say the thing that you're best at, hire somebody right away that's good at it and that you trust and, can run with it. That frees you up to really focus on everything else
That you still have to learn.
you still have to learn.
Because you haven't done it before, at least formally.
Right. Yeah. Don't, the crush that you think you have is not actually there.
Cool. Mike, anything else that you would like to share that I haven't asked specifically?
Oh man. Sure.
Too many questions.
Yeah. I don't know. To somebody new starting out, this is, this can be a really fun role. Again, depending um, on your background and what you find interesting. I think if you, you know, I personally am an introvert. I don't enjoy going to large parties and socializing with, tons and tons of people. You don't have to do that to be a manager, to be a leader. You have to empathize with people and, enjoy going deep in conversations with individuals and finding out what makes them tick and so on. But the things that get posted on LinkedIn are not necessarily the things that make you a great leader. From an imposter syndrome perspective, I think that's something a lot of technologists go through when they make the leap. And you don't all have to look and behave the same. I think everybody's got their style. Point is, find yours, and it can be a really rewarding role.